Hey everyone, it's Emily, and I once again have read enough books in the month of October to feel the need to do a mid-month wrap-up. There are quite a few books to get through, and I'm not going to try to go on and on for too long about each of them, so let's just get started. So I mentioned that I was reading this one in my October TBR that came out a little bit into October, and I was in the middle of Thank You for Being Late by Thomas L. Friedman. This was a really interesting book. I was listening to it on audio, and it's kind of his exploration of how technology is moving incredibly rapidly and advancing very rapidly, and kind of his thoughts on what that means for society, how people can kind of react to that, how should we react to that, how can we kind of take advantage of that technology and that expanding opportunity while taking a moment to slow down and overcome some of the challenges that come with rapidly advancing technology and the unequal access that people have to that advancing technology. So this was a really fascinating book. It was published in 2016, and so some of it's already kind of old because of how fast things are going. But he also just kind of talks about the history of some of these technologies and how they came to be and why they've advanced so quickly and the specific innovations that have allowed for certain technologies and industries to move as quickly as they have. And I think most of the book was actually more of a history and more information about technology and why it's moving fast than an exploration of kind of the human dimension of what that means. And there's definitely a lot of discussion about access to technology and how it's improved people's lives and how more people need to be able to access that technology and why people can't currently access that technology and what can be done about that. So there's definitely a good discussion of that in here. But I also kind of wanted just more of his thoughts about how we should approach technology moving that quickly, just as individual humans and as communities and as a society. And he does kind of bring it back to his hometown and talk a lot about how he personally has slowed down and kind of how this has made him think about community in a different way and how it's made him value community in a different way, kind of going through the research for this book and putting it together. So that was definitely really interesting, but that wasn't as much, or that wasn't as large of a portion of the book as I kind of wanted it to be. So, I mean, overall, definitely an enjoyable book. Again, some of it, the history is kind of interesting, some of it's kind of old, and I'm sure it could be updated even now, 3 years later, with a bunch of new information. So I kind of took away less of that information that might be old at this point, and really just wanted, I really was just kind of thinking about what that could mean for me. So anyway, definitely an interesting book. If you're curious about that subject, I would recommend it, and it's definitely an interesting and thought-provoking book. So next I finished Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn. This is a well-known author, well-known book that obviously has been made into a movie that I have not seen. And I kind of had a vague idea of what this book was about going in, but I didn't really know what this book was about. So this follows a husband and his wife on their 5-year anniversary. And on their 5-year anniversary, the wife goes missing. And so it follows two perspectives. It follows the husband as he's trying to figure out what happened to his wife, and it also follows the wife's perspectives in the past from diary entries. And so the audiobook was really good. I thought the narrators did an incredible job. They had one for each perspective. And I thought it was an incredibly well done audiobook. And this was a really interesting book. I really liked the characters in this. So they are messed up characters, really messed up. And I think she did an incredible job developing these characters and developing their kind of psychology and their thought process and how they deal with things and why they are the way they are given what they've been through in the past. So it was fascinating. I really liked the writing style, and I really liked kind of layering on new pieces of information as this mystery is unfolding. I thought that was done really well. And, there were some things about this that were kind of predictable, but because they were done so well, I didn't really care that I kind of thought I knew some major things that were going to happen that did end up happening, I didn't really care because I was still just so interested in these characters and what was happening that I just didn't care that it was a little bit predictable for me. I will say that I did not like the ending at all, really. I just did not like it. And I don't really know how to describe why I didn't like it without getting spoilery. But that was the only disappointing thing, but otherwise I really, really enjoyed this book and just the characters and the world and everything that was happening. So cool. So I also read The Tea Dragon Society by Katie O'Neill. This was just absolutely precious. So this follows our main character as she comes across a group of people who take care of tea dragons, these little adorable creatures right here. And it's kind of a lost art. People just kind of have stopped really caring about, caring for tea dragons and the hard work that goes into their care. People just kind of have lost a sense of why that's important, and like we can just buy tea from the store. Like, why do we need to take care of tea dragons? But she comes across a group of people who take care of tea dragons and kind of discovers a love for these creatures and taking care of them. And it's just about her and the relationships that she forms with this group of people who take care of them. And so tea leaves kind of grow from their head or their horns, and you can use those, and they really bond with the humans that care for them. And you can use those leaves to make a very special tea that is also kind of infused with and allows you to kind of experience the memories of that tea dragon and the people that they've bonded with. And it's just precious. It's so cute. The art style, I mean, this is kind of, a good taste of it. The art style is so precious. And there are it's so short, but there are just so many little nuggets that I would love to explore more in depth in this little world. And she's coming out with, or has already come out with, the Tea Dragon Festival. And so hopefully I can get and read that soon, because there's so much in here that I would love to explore more. But yeah, there's not really much else to say. It's just a precious story about friendship and connection and just how we treat other people, and it's wonderful. And I will definitely reread this whenever I just need a pick-me-up. It'll be perfect for that. So this has been on my list to read for a while, but I got to read The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. I listened to this on audio while physically reading it, and I think that was a really good way to go. The audiobook was a lot of fun, and I feel like it was really good to help pay attention to hear it, but also pay attention to it physically on the page, because there is so much going on in this book, and it was fascinating. So as I've said, this kind of follows our main character. His name is Aiden. And it follows him as he just kind of wakes up and is trying to figure out what's going on, because he has embodied someone else, and he's in this period house and is trying to figure out what's going on, or why he doesn't remember who he is, or what's happening. And he finds out that he needs to solve the murder of Evelyn Hardcastle, and that he is going to embody 8 different people in this house in an effort to solve that mystery. And he retains the memories, so he's reliving the same day that Evelyn Hardcastle is going to get murdered, but he retains the memories of the 8 different people that he is embodying as he's reliving this day. And if he doesn't solve the mystery after inhabiting these 8 people and reliving this day, then he has to start back from square one. And so it's him trying to inhabit these different people and figure out what's going on. And it's kind of a nice way to craft this. This is just such a unique story. I've never read anything quite like this. And it's a unique and good way to craft it too, because he's starting from square one just as we are starting from square one on page 1. And so it's kind of nice because as the main character is discovering stuff, we are also discovering those things with them, and you're slowly layering one thing after another. And I think it was just masterfully crafted in such a way that each story element was placed very specifically and very intentionally to add that one little layer on top of another until it just gets crazy, and you just keep getting more and more dimension to the characters as he's figuring out who he is and who the people are that he's embodying, and gets to know the other people in this house, and you're just figuring out all of the crazy things that the people in this house are involved with and what their secrets are and how that relates to the death of Evelyn Hardcastle. And this is definitely one that I think I'm going to need to reread, maybe multiple times, to fully get all of these layers and how these pieces fit together. Now that I have read it, I think I can go back and kind of pick up on a lot that will be interesting on a reread or multiple rereads. And so, yeah, this was so much fun. Would highly recommend. It was a mind trip. It was such a mind trip, but in the best way. I also read Armada from Ernest Cline. This is the author of Ready Player One, and I got this at a library book sale recently that I'm going to do a haul for, so, or maybe I already have done a haul for, depending on in what order I post them. I'm going to film them all today. Anyway, so I read or listened to Armada on audiobook, and this was a lot of fun. So it definitely reminded me a lot of Ready Player One in terms of the writing style, the main character, and just kind of the overall... The themes of the story are very similar. It also was narrated by Wil Wheaton, who narrated Ready Player One, and so that was a lot of fun, and I just really enjoyed Wil Wheaton as a narrator once again. So this follows our main character, Zach Lightman. So kind of like the main character in Ready Player One, he is kind of down on his luck, or there's a lot going on in his life. He kind of finds solace in alternative realities and video games and nerd culture, and he particularly likes the game Armada. That's one of his favorite games, and his life is turned upside down one day when a ship that's exactly like the ships that are used in the game Armada just lands at his school, in front of the school one day, and asks him to come aboard. And he kind of figures out that maybe these video games are training humans to fight very real enemies. And, you know, the story kind of goes from there. And it was just fun. If you enjoyed Ready Player One, I think you'll also enjoy Armada. And, yeah, it was just entertaining. It was just really entertaining. And I still don't like the way he writes female characters. I mean, the main female love interest in this is kind of less present than in Ready Player One. She doesn't actually play a huge role in this story. And so that's part of it. There wasn't a lot of time to develop her character because she wasn't as present. But I still very much think that the female characters that he writes are kind of one-dimensional, and they really just are, you know, the nerd that is just as nerdy as the guy and is, you know, kind of just one of the guys, but also super hot. And I'm just like, all right, whatever, dude. I think there can still be, you know, like some problematic things about a story that, as long as you keep those in mind and talk to them when you talk about the story, I still think it's okay to just enjoy a story for what it is, even if there are some things that maybe aren't your favorite about it. But again, just entertaining book. And yeah, as I said, if you liked Ready Player One, I think you'll really enjoy this one. So I just finished this one this morning, and that is The Glass Universe by Dava Sobel. And this talks about women who worked at the Harvard Observatory back in the 1800s, early 1900s. So at the time, this observatory was kind of at the leading edge of taking pictures of the universe, essentially, and they were taken on these glass plates, and, you know, a lot of data was collected, and, you know, women, so it kind of definitely reminded me of Hidden Figures, because they definitely were talking about women who were taking part in very much a man's world, and they were computers, is kind of what their job title was. They were computers who were crunching numbers and recording data, but there were also plenty of women at this observatory who really were at the leading edge of research about astronomy and cosmology, and really moved the needle forward in physics overall. And you know, some of the women who were some of the first women in the US to get PhDs and really lead that research worked at this observatory. And so David tells the story of these women and of the observatory and, its founding and its founding of different, fellowships for women that really took women from leading women's colleges around the world and across the US and, kind of drew them to Harvard to be able to help with this research. And it really is just the story of badass women leading the charge and, the people who helped them along the way. As in Hidden Figures, there definitely were specific male, people in the story that really fought to help these women and, believed in them from the start and really wanted to expand opportunities for women in science at the time. And so it was kind of a mixture of, these women doing everything they could to let their work speak for itself and fight for fair pay. There was also a lot of discussion about, how these women struggled with family life and trying to have a family while working at this observatory. So there was a lot of discussion of family dynamics, unequal pay and unequal treatment of these women, and also some women who didn't marry because they didn't want to leave the observatory and didn't want to choose putting their energy into anyone else or a family, and wanted their work to be something that was what they were known for and their passion and what they wanted to do. And so it also kind of brought me back to all the single ladies. And I read both of those books recently. I'll be sure to link recent wrap-ups to get my thoughts on those. And so it definitely kind of tied a lot of the nonfiction books that I've read recently together in in the story of this one observatory, which was kind of cool. I will say that the women who could work at this observatory were pretty much exclusively white women. And one thing that David Sobel didn't really talk about was, or at least talk about a lot, was racial dynamics at the time and how that might have played into the story of this observatory. I don't know, kind of, I think, a missed opportunity to explore some more depths about the society at the time and how society played a role in this little universe at the observatory. I'll also say that her writing style was kind of less about telling the story of these women's lives, and it was more just kind of a history of the observatory. So it was kind of very information heavy, like this happened and then this happened and then this happened, which is definitely fine, but I definitely felt like I knew these women less than I did when I was reading Hidden Figures. Like, I think I got less of a full picture of who these women were just kind of from the writing style. But there definitely was so many fascinating nuggets in here. And there definitely was a lot going on at this observatory and just in physics in general at the time. And it was really cool to follow just how integral women in general, and these women in particular, were to the advancement of physics in the late 1800s and early 1900s. So would recommend, and I thought this was fascinating. So I also read, and I actually have a physical copy of this, but it is already out in my car in a box of books ready to be donated, which probably tells you how I felt about it. But I read and listened to actually an audiobook, The Circle, by Dave Eggers. And it was definitely an interesting audiobook and an interesting book. I enjoyed listening to it. I don't know if I would have been able to get through it if I was reading it physically, but maybe I would have, maybe not. But it was interesting enough while I was listening to it that I wanted to keep listening and keep figuring out what was going on. But overall, I did not particularly like this book. So it follows our main character, May, and she has just accepted a job at a really prestigious company called The Circle, and it's a huge company, and it's kind of a social media company, technology company. They do a lot of different things, and they're constantly expanding the different industries that they get involved with. So it's basically just a huge company that does a lot of different things. And she accepts a position there, and she starts out in kind of the customer service area and is going to kind of move up from there. And she's incredibly excited. She gets started and kind of gets into the training, and as she is kind of getting more and more into the culture of this company, she starts realizing how much it's going to take to advance at this company. There's not really a clear distinction between her personal life and her private life. They really expect you to become a fully integrated part of the community, and it's kind of a campus that they're a part of. So there are events that happen all the time there at this campus. Work is really intense there, but it's also supposed to kind of be a huge family and a huge network. They kind of expect you to contribute to that community atmosphere by participating in these activities and engaging in the social network and the social platform that they have that's accessible to people inside and outside the company. So essentially kind of think of like Facebook or something. They expect you to post a certain number of times. They expect you to interact with the posts of other people at the company and your friends. And so she's really feeling the pressure because it's a lot to take on, and it's a lot, and there's a lot expected of you at this community. And so even going home for the weekend with a parent of hers being sick, she comes back and they're like, well, where were you this weekend? Like, why didn't you participate in this activity or that activity? She's like, literally my family member was sick. Like, my dad was sick. What are you talking about? Where was I? And there's just a lot of that stuff that keeps happening as she's getting deeper and deeper into this company and into the culture of it. And so this book follows her trying to advance at this company while trying to have a personal life and trying to balance those things. And she ultimately just kind of gets in deeper and deeper and deeper with this company. Some things start happening. There's a mysterious person at this company that she's trying to figure out who he is, and and she's trying to keep her personal life in some semblance of order and make sure that her family is okay and make sure she stays connected with her friends, and especially stays connected with friends who kind of aren't on this social platform that the circle hosts. And so I'm going to try to not get too spoilery about why I didn't overall enjoy this book. So there was kind of a different thread in this book. Well, one, I kind of found it predictable, and I kind of predicted the major thing that happened, but it also just went in a direction that really wasn't the part of the story that really was intriguing me. There were some threads throughout the first part of this book that could have been followed and could have taken off and been a really, really interesting set of things to happen in this book, and that just didn't happen at all. And so it was a pretty slowly paced book, and it felt like you were building and building to a major set of things that could happen if you went down that road. But none of that happened, and so it just kind of was a very slowly paced book that talks about the mundane details of her life, which is fine if her life is kind of building to something and you need that development and you need that time in that world to kind of make that full impact later on in the book when there is that twist or that surprise. And so it wasn't really building up to that. And that was kind of disappointing. I'm just not sure. Like, it was obvious commentary on, social platforms and the blurring of boundaries between our personal life and kind of the life that we put online and the life that we present to other people, and trying to stay truly connected to people and not just artificially, I guess you could say, connected to people, or like shallowly connected to people. And so I guess I appreciated that, but it just, I don't know if it added much to the conversation about that. And May was also just a really frustrating character to follow. She was definitely an interesting one at times, but she was also so frustrating because there was a lot that she didn't learn. And I was like, why don't you get it? Why don't you get it? Like, the things that are happening are designed to be teaching you something. Why aren't you learning those things? And so it was really frustrating to follow her at times. But anyway, overall, not really my favorite book. It was fine enough to listen to as an audiobook, but I'm probably never really going to think about it again. And I'm not really tempted to watch the movie or anything. I don't know. It was fine. Those are the books I read recently. Let me know if you have read any of these and what you thought of them. And I will do another wrap up at the end of the month. I'm currently working on Serpent and Dove, and I think I might have a full review of this one because I know I'm going to have a lot of thoughts and a lot to talk about with this one. I also will be diving into The Diviners very soon, and so that will also hopefully be part of my next wrap-up. But yeah, that's it for now. Thanks for watching. Again, let me know if you've read any of these and what you thought of them. I'll be sure to leave my Twitter and Instagram link down below, so follow me there. And be sure to subscribe for more bookish content. I'll also leave my climate channel below. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.